home, and you sit down with me and my wife and our kids, this is the usual conversation that happens in our home every day now. We have a 5-year-old son, very curious, very inquisitive, somebody who likes asking questions. So he would often come to me, ask me a question. And it never fails that after he asks me a question, he would turn to the mom and says, "Mom, is that true? Is Dad telling the truth?" Raise your hand if you've got a dad just like me who you always doubt whether he's telling the truth. Come on. If you've got a parent like that, you got to have a second opinion with the mom. There always has to be a confirmation. "Mom, is that true?" See, that's the season that we're in. I think that's a good habit of wanting to check if that's really the truth. See, a very wise man by the name of John Escoto, one of our builders, he said this to me a long time ago. He said, bro, there are 2 ways of questioning. The first is you question because you want to challenge the integrity of the statement of that person. You want to argue, you want to debate. That's the first type of questioning. But there's a second type of questioning. You question simply because you want to appreciate. You want to understand more. And see, a lot of people oftentimes get offended when somebody questions them because they think that it's the second type of questioning, or the first one. They think that they want to argue with you. They think that they want to have a debate. They want to challenge that. But not knowing that that person really wants to ask the question so that they can understand that. Tatanong lang mo. Yung iba, over yung reaction, di ba? Grabe yung OA, kasi kala nila, challenge yung question. But I believe this, that it's good to never settle for the surface level. To continually seeking for the truth, because that's how we get wisdom. When we try to find the truth. But you see, in also trying to find the truth, in seeking answers, I believe that we also need to look for the right source. How many of you believe that? That you need to talk to the right people? Because if you end up talking to the wrong source, you know how in the internet, when you visit a site that's unverified, it will give you a warning, untrusted source. You gotta watch out for people like that. You gotta use your head if you're talking to the right people, because sometimes the source is bad. And that's what happens, and what happened to Eve in the Bible. I'm going to go a little bit backwards. I know we're in the book of Numbers, but I'll give to you this beautiful reading, a backstory that happens in Genesis chapter 3. And it says that the serpent was the shrewdest of all the wild animals that the Lord God had made. And one day, the serpent asked the woman, "Did God really say?" Can you say that? Did God really say?
Did God really say?
Did God really say you must not eat from any of the trees in the garden? Of course we may eat from the trees in the garden, the woman replied. It's only the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden that we're not allowed to eat. And God said, you must not eat it or even touch it, because if you do, you will die. And then the serpent says this, you won't die. God knows that your eyes will be opened as soon as you eat it, and you will be like God, knowing both good and evil. See, here's the thing. In the very first place, Eve shouldn't have been in that conversation with the serpent to begin with. I mean, if she only knew that that serpent was not to be trusted, it was unverified source. Here's a lesson for all of you today. You need to stay away from conversations where you know that the other person will do anything just to win the argument, even fabricate the truth. Am I preaching the truth? Stay away from conversations where people will, you know the term victim mentality? How some people, they feel like they're always the victim and it's never their fault and it's always the other person's fault. You need to stay away from conversations like that, because listen to me. When the wolf tells the story, the shepherd is always the enemy. When it's the villain that's telling the story, the version on that story, the hero always becomes the bad guy. So always remember when you're talking to somebody and you feel like this person is trying so hard. I know the truth, but this person is trying so hard that you already know that it's not good. So you walk away from conversations like that. And this happened. We're going to switch now to the book of Numbers. Because in the story here that we're going to read in the book of Numbers, Moses sends out some spies in the land of Canaan to spy the land. In fact, it says in Numbers chapter 13, verse 1, send out men to explore the land of Canaan, the land I am giving to the Israelites. This is what God says. Send one leader from each of the 12 ancestral tribes. And so Moses sends all of these spies. He instructed them. It says in verse 17, Moses gave the men these instructions as he sent them out to explore the land. And here's the instructions. Go north through the Negev into the hill country and see what the land is like. And find out whether the people living there are strong or weak, few or many. And then he says, see what kind of land they live in. Is it good or bad? Do their towns have walls, or are they unprotected like other towns? Is the soil fertile or poor? Are there many trees? Do your best to bring back samples of the crops you see. You know, when I was reading this, it reminded me of every Filipino mom. You know, when a Filipino mom tells you to do one thing, anak, aalis lang ako, pupunta lang ako sa tindahan, o magtatrabaho lang ako, pero pwede ka bang magsaing na habang wala ako? Tapos linisin mo na rin yung kwarto, tapos magwalis ka na rin ng bahay, tapos ilaban mo na rin yung mga matutubing damit, tapos bumili ka na rin kay Aling Pepay ng batis na kulang. Sino may ganyan nanay? May parang tuloy-tuloy yung utos. Katabi mo ba yung nanay mo? I pray that she's not with you. Parang feeling mo yung nanay mo. Ganito yung tingin sa kamay natin. Can we show the picture? Nay! I'm just one person in the universe. It's not a multiverse. Wala akong kasama dito. Ako lang yung isa. That's how I felt like, Moses was giving all of these instructions. But you see, let me highlight something here that reminds us of Genesis chapter 3. Moses says, he instructs the spies to go around in the land, and then he says this question. He says, is it good or bad? God already promised this land to the Israelites. But then Moses somehow needed a confirmation. Go and see what the land is like. Spy it out. See what kind of land they live in. Is it good or bad? In other words, Moses was saying, in your eyes, is it good or is it bad? This was the same trick that the serpent did. He wanted Eve to determine whether this apple was good or bad based on her own judgment. See, that's the problem with a lot of us. We get into trouble when we try to define good or bad according to our own terms. And so now we're thinking, is it really bad? I mean, everybody else is doing it. Maybe it's not that bad. Everybody seems to think that in this company, this is the culture that they're doing. So maybe it's not really good. Maybe it's acceptable. So now you're justifying what God said was bad because somebody told you 5 weeks ago that it's not bad, that you should steal a little bit of bond paper from your company. Or maybe because daddy and mommy give a white lie every now and then. So maybe lying is not that bad because mommy and daddy are doing it. Because my best friend said it's okay, and my best friend is cheating on her boyfriend, so maybe it's okay. Maybe it's not so bad after all. So what's happening is that now we're so confused and we no longer trust what God says is bad and what God says is good. Listen to God's voice. That's the message for today. We're going to give you 4 sub-messages. I pray that you receive this. Here's the first message. Stop looking for an easy life. Can you preach that to someone right now and say, friend, stop looking for an easy life. I know you've been praying that God would lift that burden from you, but stop praying that it would be easy. That's the message. I'll read to you how Moses sends out the 12 spies to explore the land. Here's what they found out. Okay, listen to this. When they came to the valley of Eshcol, they cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes so large that it took 2 of them to carry it on a pole between them. And they also brought back samples of the pomegranates and figs. And then after surveying the land for 40 days, this is what they reported. Listen to this. My goodness, this is so good. We entered the land you sent to explore, they said to Moses. And it is indeed a beautiful country, a land flowing with milk and honey. Here's the kind of fruit it produces to give the grapes. And then they said, but, everybody say, but the people living there are powerful. In life, there's a lot of buts. I'm blessed, but I'm happy, but I'm good, but I mean, wouldn't life just be amazing if you just said, I'm blessed, period, without a but? be blessed is because there's a but right after your sentence. You declare the goodness of God, but there's always a reason for us to complain. That was a talk last week, right? How we always have this habit of complaining. Life could be good, but there's always something missing. What if you learn how to live your life, knowing that yes, life is difficult, but that's the way of life. Bruce Lee said this: don't pray to have an easy life. Instead, pray for the strength to endure a difficult one. That's beautiful. Stop praying that you would have an easy life. Because the truth is, the only way that God can deepen your faith and strengthen your resolve is if you have to face a few giants here and there. Amen? And go through a little problem here and there. Otherwise, you have a weak life. If you've never had to go through problems in your life which is full of rainbows and reindeers and unicorns and all these good stuff, you never have a strong life. But when life is hard, that's when you know you're strong. Because you've been through some stuff. How many of you have been through some stuff in life and you can tell that stuff really taught you? Raise your hand. Amen. So don't pray for an easy life. Here's the second one. Your fears enlarge your enemies. I love this point. Let's read the verse. We'll continue with the verse where they said, but the people living there are powerful, and their towns are large and fortified. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. You see, the Anakims, they were giants. And so, I'll tell you a giant story afterwards, but I'll read to you the rest of the story. One of the spies that was hearing this report about this complaint, they were saying the land is filled with milk and honey. But the people living there are powerful. There's a guy here named Caleb, and he says, he's a little bit different from them. He says, let's go at once and take the land. We can certainly conquer it. He's a little bit different. He's a little more courageous than the other people. The other people said, no, but the land is, there's a lot of people there. But you see, here's the thing. This is a lesson for some of you who are listening to this. Caleb is just one person. The majority are saying that the land cannot be conquered. See, when the majority speaks, when the mob speaks, they have a loud voice. Do you agree with me? And even if it's the wrong voice, it can be a loud voice and it can swing you. It can influence you. It can impact you. Meanwhile, there's only one guy by the name of Caleb saying, let's go and take the land. We can certainly conquer it. You see, the way God speaks, sometimes God will not speak in a loud voice. God often speaks in a whisper, just like he whispered to Elijah. Because it often means that God only needs to whisper it because he's that close to you. That's why you have to train your spirits, train your soul to listen to God's voice. Otherwise, if the mob is too loud, and the noise of the world is just too loud, it's going to drown out God's voice. So one more time, tell the person beside you, listen to God's voice.
Listen to God's voice.
And then they said this because of fear. The other spies even said, we can't go up against them. They're stronger than we are. And instead of focusing on the land flowing with milk and honey, this is what they did. The land we traveled through and explored will devour anyone who goes to live there. Now they're telling the bad news. All the people we saw were huge. We even saw giants there. This descendants of Anak. And next to them, we felt like grasshoppers. And that's what they thought too. You see, what they were doing was they were focusing too much on their fear. How many of you know that when you focus on growth, when you focus flourishes, so when you focus on your fear too much, your fear grows. But what you need to be doing right now is that you focus on your faith, so that your faith will be the one to rise up. Speaking of giants, once upon a time there was a guy named David. You know David? David faced a giant named Goliath. Everybody, when they saw Goliath, they said, he's too big to kill. You know what David thought? This is just my version. David said, he's not too big to kill. He's too big to miss. In that situation, everybody thought it was an impossible obstacle. But to David, it was an incredible opportunity for God to show strength and goodness. When you come upon your giants this week, I'm telling you, this message is for you. When you come upon your giants this week, don't look at it as an impossible obstacle. Instead, you say, this is an incredible opportunity for my God to shine. Amen. So instead of looking at it from the lens of fear, look at it from the lens of faith and watch how your Almighty God will will melt away your fears. Can we give the Lord a big hand? I'm going to call on my very, very good friend who will preach the rest of the message. God bless you. Please welcome everybody, John Ben Rodriguez.